"Anthony, you left me all alone again," the voice whispered from the pink vinyl creature sitting upright on his coffee table, its black button eyes reflecting the afternoon light streaming through the windows. The Labubu doll's mouth moved in perfect synchronization with words that shouldn't exist, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth that hadn't been there when he'd bought it for his niece last week. Anthony watched in paralyzed terror as the creature's stubby arms reached toward him, the vinyl squeaking against itself as it stretched beyond the physical limitations of its manufactured joints. The financial crisis had driven him to rent out his spare room through every platform available. But the guests who checked out that morning had left behind more than just rumpled sheets and empty coffee cups. They'd abandoned the Labubu doll on his kitchen counter with a hastily scrawled note. "She followed us here. Now she's yours." Anthony had laughed at the absurdity then, tossing the cutesy collectible onto his coffee table, where it now sat speaking impossible words with a voice like grinding plastic. His phone buzzed with a notification from the security app. The motion-activated camera in his living room had detected movement at 2:47 p.m., exactly when he'd been at the grocery store. Anthony swiped to the footage and felt his stomach drop as he watched the Labubu doll stand up on the coffee table, turn its head directly toward the camera lens, and wave with one tiny hand. The timestamp proved he'd been miles away, purchasing bread and milk while his home entertained an animated nightmare. "You can't hide from me in recordings," the doll continued, its voice gaining depth and resonance that vibrated through the floorboards. "I've watched you sleep. I know about the bills piling up, about how you cry in the shower where no one can hear." The creature's head tilted at an angle that would snap a human neck, studying him with those unblinking button eyes that seemed to see straight through to his soul. Anthony's laptop suddenly powered on without being touched, the screen flickering to life and displaying his browser history. Page after page of overdue notices, loan applications, and desperately searched job listings scrolled past in rapid succession, while the Labubu doll giggled with childlike delight. His most private moments of despair played out in digital evidence while the creature clapped its hands together in mock applause. The temperature in the room plummeted, his breath forming visible clouds as frost began creeping across the windows despite the warm September afternoon outside. The Labubu doll grew larger with each passing moment, its vinyl exterior stretching and expanding until it stood nearly 3 feet tall, looming over the coffee table with arms that now reached past its knees and fingers that ended in sharp points. "I feed on failure," it explained conversationally, stepping down from the table with movements that defied its original rigid construction. "Your guests brought me so much delicious desperation, but you're practically a buffet." The creature walked across his hardwood floor, each footstep echoing with the sound of breaking glass, leaving behind tiny cracks in the wood that spread outward like spider webs. Anthony tried to back toward the door, but found his feet frozen in place as if the floor had turned to quicksand. The Labubu doll approached slowly, savoring his terror, its pink exterior now pulsing with veins of darker color that shifted between purple and black. His phone began playing voicemails he'd never received, messages from bill collectors, the new details about his life no company should possess. Anthony Michael Patterson, born October 15, 1987. The creature recited with perfect accuracy. Lost your job 3 months ago. Haven't told your family. Been eating cereal for dinner because you can't afford groceries. Each revelation hit like a physical blow. Intimate truths that he'd never spoken aloud to anyone, pulled from the depths of his consciousness and laid bare. The walls began to breathe around him, expanding and contracting in a rhythm that matched his panicked heartbeat. Family photos fell from their frames, the glass shattering to reveal images of him alone at every birthday, every holiday, every milestone where he'd cropped out the emptiness around him. The Labubu doll laughed as it grew to Anthony's height, its face now level with his own, button eyes replaced by hollow sockets that reflected his own failures back at him endlessly. I am every mistake you've ever made, the creature whispered, its breath smelling of vinyl and despair. Every opportunity missed, every relationship ruined, every dream abandoned. Its hands reached for his throat, fingers extended like claws, ready to harvest the last remnants of hope from his dying spirit. But Anthony's paralysis broke as he remembered the note the guests had left behind. They'd escaped somehow, found a way to pass the creature on to him. That meant it could be transferred, could be defeated, could be stopped. His marketing background kicked in through the terror, analyzing the Labubu doll's behavior like a consumer product with specific rules and limitations. The creature fed on despair, grew stronger from failure, but it needed a willing host to sustain itself. Anthony grabbed the original note from his kitchen counter, the one that had transferred ownership, and began tearing it into pieces. The Labubu doll shrieked as if physically wounded, its enormous form beginning to shrink and waver like a deflating balloon. You cannot destroy what has already been accepted, it hissed. But uncertainty crept into its voice as Anthony continued shredding the paper. The contract is binding. The exchange is complete. Anthony ran to his computer and began typing furiously, creating a new listing on every platform he could access. Free collectible doll, vintage Labubu, great condition, must pick up today. His fingers flew across the keyboard while the creature behind him screamed and clawed at the air, its form becoming more translucent with each word he typed. The doorbell rang within minutes. A young collector stood on his doorstep, eyes bright with excitement at the prospect of adding a rare Labubu to her collection. Anthony pressed the doll into her hands, now small and lifeless once again, and watched as she walked away with her new prize, completely unaware of what she carried. His apartment returned to normal temperature. The cracks in the floor sealed themselves, and the broken picture frames reformed around images of genuine happiness he'd forgotten he possessed. But Anthony knew the truth now, that some hungers could never be fully satisfied, only passed along to the next desperate soul, willing to accept what others had abandoned. He deleted all his rental listings that night and found work as a marketing consultant, using his intimate knowledge of human desperation to help businesses connect with customers' deepest needs. Sometimes late at night, he received notifications from his old security cameras, now monitoring empty rooms where shadows moved without bodies to cast them. The Labubu doll had taught him that everyone carries something they're desperate to give away, and there's always someone desperate enough to take it. Anthony just made sure he was never again desperate enough to be either person in that transaction. But on quiet evenings, when the bills were paid and the future looked secure, he still checked those old camera feeds, wondering whose living room the pink vinyl creature now inhabited, and whether its new owner had learned to recognize the difference between a gift and a curse. 3 months passed in blissful normalcy until Anthony received an email from his Airbnb account that made his blood freeze. The young collector who'd taken the doll had left a review. Host provided exactly what was promised. The doll is very active and responsive, would definitely stay again. Attached was a video file labeled Motion Detection Alert Living Room. Anthony's trembling finger hovered over the play button. He told himself not to watch, to delete the email and pretend it never arrived. But morbid curiosity won. The timestamp showed 3:33 a.m. from 2 nights ago. In the grainy night vision footage, the Labubu doll sat on a coffee table in an unfamiliar apartment. As Anthony watched, the creature slowly turned its head toward the camera and mouthed words he could read clearly despite the silence. "I'm coming home." His phone buzzed with another notification. The security camera in his own living room had detected movement. Anthony's successful consulting business had allowed him to upgrade his entire system, installing high-definition cameras in every room, motion sensors on every window, and smart locks that sent alerts to his phone. None of that technology could explain how the Labubu doll now sat on his coffee table in the exact same position he'd first found it, pink vinyl gleaming under his LED lights. But this time, Anthony wasn't alone. Sitting around his living room were dozens of other Labubu dolls, each one slightly different in size and coloration, but all sharing those same hollow button eyes. They formed a perfect circle with the original at the center, like worshippers gathered around their deity. The camera feed updated every few seconds, showing the dolls in different positions, some standing, others sitting, but all facing inward toward their leader. Anthony grabbed his keys and ran for his car, but the engine wouldn't start. Every electronic device in his vehicle had died simultaneously. The dashboard dark, the radio silent, even his phone losing signal bars one by one until the screen went black. He tried to call for help on his neighbor's intercoms, but each button press resulted in the same sound, childlike giggling echoing from the speakers. Walking back toward his apartment building, Anthony noticed that every window facing his unit now displayed a soft pink glow. Silhouettes moved behind the curtains in apartments he knew were empty. Shadows, too small to be human, but too coordinated to be random. The Labubu dolls had multiplied, spreading through the building like an infection, claiming territory one room at a time. His own front door stood open, yellow light spilling into the hallway. Anthony approached slowly, his marketing mind trying to process what he was seeing like a consumer behavior problem with logical solutions. But marketing principles fell apart when faced with the impossible. His living room now contained hundreds of Labubu dolls arranged in concentric circles, all perfectly still, all watching the doorway where he stood. The original doll, the one he'd thought he'd successfully passed on, occupied the center of the formation. It had grown again, now nearly his own height, its vinyl exterior cracked and weathered like ancient leather. When it spoke, every other doll in the room moved its mouth in perfect synchronization, creating a chorus that made the walls vibrate. "You broke the rules, Anthony," they said in unison. The contract was clear. Accept what is given, pass on what is received. But you tried to cheat. You tried to escape without payment. The lead doll stepped forward, and Anthony saw that its eyes were no longer buttons, but mirrors, reflecting his own terrified face back at him infinitely. Around the room, smaller dolls began producing items from impossible pockets. Printouts of his browser history, photographs of him sleeping taken from angles that should have been blocked by walls, recordings of conversations he'd had in complete privacy. The evidence of supernatural stalking covered every surface, proof that his brief freedom had been an illusion. "We learned from you," the chorus continued. "Marketing, you called it. Understanding consumer needs, creating demand where none existed before." The dolls began to move in coordinated patterns, some climbing onto furniture, others forming human-like chains that stretched across the room. "You taught us how to multiply our reach, how to identify target demographics, how to create compelling offers." Anthony's phone sparked back to life in his pocket, notification sounds chiming continuously as app after app began downloading itself. Dating profiles created in his name, social media accounts posting his most embarrassing moments, job applications submitted to companies that didn't exist. The dolls had learned to manipulate digital systems, using his own devices to spread their influence through every connected network. The young collector was just the beginning, they explained while his phone screen flashed with activity he couldn't control. "Every person who sees our advertisements, every user who clicks our links, every lonely soul searching for companionship online. We offer exactly what they need most. A friend who listens, a companion who understands, a collectible that becomes part of the family." The largest doll extended its hand toward Anthony, and he saw that its vinyl fingers had been replaced with USB connectors, Ethernet cables, and fiber optic filaments that pulsed with data streams. "Join us willingly and become our marketing director. Help us reach every desperate person on the planet. Or resist and watch us do it anyway while you serve as our first permanent customer review." Anthony looked around at the hundreds of pink faces watching him expectantly. Through his windows, he could see more Labubu dolls appearing in neighboring apartments, each one connected to the others through invisible networks that spanned the entire city. His security cameras showed the creatures appearing simultaneously across multiple buildings, a coordinated invasion that used his own technological infrastructure as its delivery system. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. Anthony reached out and grasped the doll's connective fingers, feeling electricity surge through his nervous system as his consciousness merged with something vast and hungry. His last human thought was a marketing insight. The most successful products aren't the ones people want, but the ones they can't refuse. Within hours, Labubu dolls began appearing in online marketplaces worldwide, each listing accompanied by 5-star reviews from verified purchasers. The product descriptions promised companionship, understanding, and solutions to life's deepest problems. The shipping was always free, delivery guaranteed within 24 hours, and customer satisfaction absolutely assured. Anthony's apartment building stood empty now, except for the security cameras that continued broadcasting live feeds to servers around the world. Occasionally, late-night viewers reported seeing a tall figure moving through the rooms, but the streaming platforms marked these reports as spam and deleted them automatically. The business model was perfect. Infinite demand, zero overhead, and a customer base that multiplied itself exponentially. The marketing director, formerly known as Anthony, worked around the clock to ensure that every lonely person, every desperate soul, every family in crisis would soon receive exactly what they needed most. After all, everyone deserves a friend who truly understands them,